Hi, this is David Thornburg, President and CEO of the Committee of 70. Welcome to a special Monday after Thanksgiving edition of Studio C70, where we're here talking with a number of folks about their reactions to the recent corruption convictions of Councilman Heenan and Labor Leader John Doherty. Joining us right now is Councilman Mark Squilla. Councilman, thanks for joining me.
David, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Just a quick background on Councilman Squilla, graduate of LaSalle University, longtime community leader, spent 25 years working for the Pennsylvania Auditor General, and was first elected to council in 2011. So, Councilman, I know you were hoping to be this morning at the press conference that we held with some other good government groups and some legislators and members of council to talk about these corruption convictions and where we go from here to ultimately increase people's confidence in their government. Let me start with this. Had you been there, and I know you wanted to be there, what would you have said when you stepped up to the microphone, when it was your turn to comment on where we are and where we should go from here?
I think what I would have probably said, and what was on my mind to speak about, is how we as elected officials could look at the pitfalls of being in these positions and then see how we could prevent something like this from happening. We watched the trial and looking at everything, and obviously some things that we have training on. After the trial, I was really reached out to Council President Clark to say, should we have specific training? Should we have Committee 70 ethics training to come in to make sure, that we know exactly what we're doing, what is considered illegal, what is not considered illegal? Because I was asked earlier by a reporter, and they said, well, you know what a bribe is. And I said, yeah, of course I know what a bribe is. But, after the trial, it's a little concerning that if the second job means that that person then can be affected as a bribe because of that second job. We as council members need to know what we can and cannot do. And if people are recorded on the phone and then they work for a certain law firm and that law firm happened to defend somebody or benefited from legislation, and you end up voting in favor of that, is that a problem? If you're on a board, we had this training last time. If you're on a board and you're out there and they benefit from something, nonprofit benefits from something that is done in council, is that considered a crime? These are challenges for us because you think what you can and can't do, but sometimes we clear things through ethics. We put things on our ethic reports, but that's not good enough, right? So we as elected officials, if second job is considered to be a possible crime because you're acting on their benefit, then I think at the end of the day, maybe it's better that we don't have access to a second job and we don't put ourselves in that type of position.
Mm-hmm. So let me play devil's advocate for a second. There are folks that say, like, essentially, money in politics is like water running downhill. It's always going to find a way to get to the bottom, no matter what you do, no matter what rules, regulation, training, et cetera, you put in place. It's always going to find its way into someone's pocket, and they're going to do something in their interest and not in the interest of the public. How do you respond to that? That's sort of the version of what we call the Philly shrug, right?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, listen, we get lobbied in council here by people, who make donations to your campaign. You get lobbied by people who don't make donations to your campaign. You as you come in, you look at the concerns that are brought to you, and you see if they are going to be in the best interest of your constituent base, and you move forward with them. It's kind of sad that somebody's going to give you a donation, $1,000 donation or a $5,000 donation, and you're going to threaten your job and your livelihood and possibly go to jail for that. I mean, politicians are always looked at as maybe a little bit of a side job. This is a full-time operation. And you're not going to take a donation of that type and then, put your job in jeopardy and your life in jeopardy, your family's life in jeopardy, and put you into those positions. So, I mean, I know people say that, but it's not a reality. And then, when we get lobbied, whether it's school students that come in here and ask us, like, maybe do plastic bags and how important it is to them, or if it is a corporation who comes in and they're lobbying on both sides. We get lobbied on both sides of every issue, no matter what the legislation is. And at the end of the day, you as an elected official have to really look and see how it affects your constituent base and that you move forward in one way or the other. And sometimes you compromise and split it down the middle. So those challenges will always be there, whether there's money or not money, because of the pressure. Obviously, most members of council will err on the side of being with your constituent base because they're the ones who elect you. They're the ones who put you in office. We work for them, right? They pay our salaries. So is that corrupt? Because they're the ones who are going to determine whether we stay in office or not. So why are we going to do something that somebody gave us a couple extra dollars for our campaign that we're going to spend on probably our constituency anyway, and not do it for people who are going to vote for you? So I don't see that. I don't know any elected official who's going to go in there and jeopardize their job for a $5,000 donation. And even during the trial process, when you were listening to it, the members were found guilty of receiving a donation and then doing something on their behalf. Yet when they received other donations, even though they were all there, those donations were not to be fit. They were found not guilty on receiving those other donations. So is it because the recordings didn't say they did something at that time? If every person was on a recording for their whole life and you had it, are you going to be able to determine that something was illegal about what they did? I'm sure you could find something on any person that way. So it is a little challenging right now. Do you call and ask for donations, or do you send a letter and ask for donations? There was call time and you would reach out to folks and they would send donations. If somebody says something on the phone inappropriate, boom, next thing you know, all right, that's a crime. And so the challenges will be there. That's why we supported, public financing for elections. And I know Councilmember Green had put something forward. I co-sponsored it, and a lot of people were opposed to it, right? They don't think you should pay tax dollars to fund campaigns. That would, I think, alleviate this problem because everybody would get the same amount of money. The media could give each person either a little spot on TV equally, and then I guess it could be more considered fair at that time. So, these are challenging times. We as elected officials need to know what our responsibilities are, need to know what is clear and what is not clear. So the easiest thing to do, instead of having gray areas, they have to be black and white. So you can't accidentally get into put yourself into a position where now you're backpedaling and being defensive. I really wasn't doing it for this reason. It sounds like I was, but I wasn't. And it causes confusion among elected officials and the people who want to protect, the rights of the public, to saying all elected officials are corrupt in some way because money sways them. And so I sort of take a little bit of offense to that you're going to give up your job for that little bit of a donation. But time and time again, you see that, people have been convicted of that.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned investigating the idea of some sort of public financing for elections, which is something we've also agreed needs to be on the agenda to take a look at. Obviously, the other issue that surfaced during this trial, and you mentioned this as well earlier, is outside employment. What do you feel needs to be done, if anything, around the issue of outside employment for members of council?
Well, I know people said it has to be more transparent. You have to be able to document it. You have to put exactly what your job is. When you put your ethics form, you're stating certain things as you're receiving a stipend from certain, whether it's a law firm or in this case, it was the union. What does your job pertain? Are you consultants for them, or do you advise them on certain things? Do you speak with them? Do you call them monthly, weekly, or whatever? That's something that's already done. If you're going to do that, I think it has to be all or nothing. You can't have, all right, you could have a second job. You're going to state actually everything that you do for it. And then you could be recorded as something, and then that could be still considered a bribe. So you're, by allowing that second job, at least after this trial and the verdict, it almost makes it very possible to be considered a bribe, depending on what you were saying to each other that was being recorded. So I find it really hard. I don't think you could outline certain things you have to do when you have a job. I think it still sends you into a gray area that something can be construed if you didn't abstain from a certain thing and voted on something that you shouldn't have. Now it's a bribe. So, I think it creates challenges for elected officials, and maybe it's something that we shouldn't allow.
Yeah. One other issue, and then I want to let you go because I know you're monitoring a hearing that you want to participate in. But again, sort of devil's advocate, there are folks that say, elected officials who say, my constituents don't really care about all this good government stuff, ethics, integrity, reporting, transparency. I know you spent 25 years in the Auditor General's office, so I suspect I'm maybe asking the wrong guy, but how do you respond to them when they say people don't care about this stuff? That what they care about is food on the table or their kids' education or those kinds of issues?
I mean, they care about those things, obviously. They care about both. That's how I respond. I think it's really important for people to know that they could trust their elected officials. I think if you start going down the wrong road and saying people don't care about that, you're speaking out of the wrong side of your mouth. And I think it's very important to our constituent base that the people who they elect are going to be sincere, they're going to be transparent, and they're going to be honest. And they might not always like everything that you do, or I don't know the key to success, but the key to failure is trying to please everybody. It is always going to be a challenge out there that, people will appreciate, though, if you're honest with them, if you're transparent, and they believe you're telling them the truth. And if you say people don't care, they do, no matter where they're coming from. Of course, they also want the constituent service part of it too, right? They want their alleys cleaned or their lights fixed or the sewers cleaned out, potholes done. They want all those things too, but they also want to make sure, I think it's really important to make sure that the person who's representing them is not somebody who's being corrupt in any way.
Terrific. Well, thank you. And just say we look forward to working with you and your colleagues to see if we can maintain or increase people's trust and confidence in the jobs that you folks do. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. And I think it's very important to continue this conversation, to go down that road, and also not only protect our people who we represent, but also protect the elected officials who are going into those positions, so they know exactly what is something that could, be a pitfall for them and end up in hot water or something that they really didn't intend to do.
Sure. Thanks again, Councilman.
All right,
okay.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night.